welcome, beautiful souls, to another episode of the Spiritual Catalyst podcast, where we talk about all things weird and woo. I am your host, Sarah Lyons, the founder of the newearthschool.com.au, and today we have the beautiful Isabel O'Hara Walsh with us to talk about hypersensitivity and witch work. Now, Isabel O'Hara Walsh, she, is a queer and highly sensitive witch, ritualist, teacher, novelist, and maker of other arts. As a village witch and teacher, Isabel uses tarot, spellcraft, energy work, and fiction writing as portals for empowering her students. Isabel is an unorthodox scholar of fairy and folktales, herbs and their uses, and processing trauma, and believes that to be in true conversation with each other and the land where we live, we must collectively work to change oppressive systems. Isabel lives in Raleigh, NC, with the trees, her rabbits, her cat, and a loving polycule. Isabel, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so glad to be here.
Good to have you. May I ask, what is a polycule?
Yes, I love that question. I am polyamorous, and meaning I have multiple romantic partners. And so I live with my nesting partner, who I've been with for many years. But I also have another long-term partner, and I date other folks too. So our polycule is like that partner, my nesting partner, that
Oh,
partner's partner, my nesting partner's partner. It's like all of our chosen family of folks who are together, and it's a really sweet family of just like care and interdependence.
that's beautiful. Thank you for
Thanks.
sharing that with us. You feel just so, independent and in your own and allowing your uniqueness and your, those true soul codes of yours to just shine through. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let us get into this. We are talking about hypersensitivity and witch work. Just for the listeners that may not be used to these terms together, where can we start with that?
Yeah, love it. Hypersensitivity, I did not know that word until, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago, hypersensitive. But for my whole life, I have been like sometimes overstimulated. Like touch is very intense for me. Um, Sound is intense, smell is intense. Those are kind of my like top three heavy hitters, but hypersensitivity can take a lot of different shapes.
Mm.
Um, and those are just like the physical senses that for me are heightened. I think of it as a form of neurodivergence, which is becoming like
Mm.
more common in the vernacular, where it's like neurologically things are just a little bit different for me than they are for um, folks for whom a lot of our like given systems work easily. So there are ways that hypersensitivity is really it's kind of challenging, and there like being in the world can be a little bit challenging. But I wanted to talk with you about like the ways that it's been really connective and allowed me to deepen into a lot of the like ritual and energy work that I do in a way that I wouldn't have been able to access if I hadn't had that going on in my like body and nervous system. So witch work for me is many different things, but I would say stuff spanning from like, yep, I'm gonna cast spells. I make people are always like, do you make potions? Like, what potions do you make? I drink a lot of tea that I make myself. I love tinctures. I love learning about herbs. And so there's that super tangible stuff. But then I also think that witchcraft and witch work is anything that connects us to each other, connects us to the natural world, is intentionally engaging with things weird and woo, things
Mm.
beyond what we can see, or what we are like trained to see, what we're most used to seeing as what is real. So my hypersensitivity, I believe that my hypersensitivity lends me a real boost in terms of sensing other folks' energy, or in terms of just really Sorry, I have a rabbit in the room with me and she's drinking out of her water bottle. So let me know if the sound gets too loud and
No, not
I'll
at
I
all.
can
Can't
enable
hear
things.
it.
Okay. Um, and yeah, just I think it really allows me to sink a little deeper in my body into the world. It means having really clear spoken boundaries around like, well, I need to stop touching now, or I need to go be in a quiet place, or I've recently bought like little ear funnels that you can put in. They're like little rubber funnels. They make the sound less intense that I'll wear at musical shows and stuff like that. But that's a little bit of what those things mean for me and how they work in my world.
I love that so much. There's so many of us. I don't think it's spoken about enough, even for those of us who are just so hypersensitive. I know my son doesn't really get it. For him, everything, the screens have got to be bright, the the music or whatever he's listening to has to be loud, and it literally like hurts my soul. I'm like, I just need quiet and peace. And that's where, my energy thrives. So I'm so glad that we're talking about this today, but also taking that, empowered perspective that we can work with this. And actually, there's some beautiful things that can come from it. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, the witch work and how this is all beautifully merged together.
Yeah. I think the most clear place to start for me is energy work, which is
Mm.
it's a broad thing. I first learned about energy work and started learning some energy work by getting Reiki 1 and 2 trained by a really wonderful close friend. And that was a really fascinating experience of being asked to tune into the way that energy was entering and leaving my body and the way that I was intentionally directing it, calling it into my body, fine tuning it, if you will, in a certain way to be the most healing and helpful for myself or whoever the other recipient was. And that was, I remember leaving the first training and she was like, congratulations, guys, you'll have hot little hands now. And it's like, yeah, when you are channeling Reiki through your hands are literally hot. And I think that that's an example of sensitivity of like, wow, I am really feeling this moving through my system and my field and out into the world. And it was my first really like focused time intentionally tuning into that process of how much agency I had and what it felt like. And I did not think of myself as hypersensitive at the time. I was definitely still in a place where like people would make loud noises around me and I would be like, wow, why am I so grumpy all the time? Like, what is wrong with me that I just can't deal? And I remember asking my partner, whom I live with, like, can you, like, he would knock over his big, like, plastic water bottle. And I would be like, that was extremely jarring. And he'd be like, wow, really? Like that didn't seem like a big deal to me. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I really need that to happen as little as possible. And I understand that that's a request. And also, if you could meet it as much as you can, that'd be great. And he's wonderfully just like met me where I'm at. It helped us both a lot when I had more language to speak
Mm.
to it and could say, like, this is what's happening in my system. It's not just that because I also didn't know how to explain it to the people around me. Um, anyway, that feels like it's gone as I develop more understanding and have more language to put to it and can go, oh, okay, actually, this isn't just like something wrong that I will fix over time. It's just a part of how I am in the world and how I experience the world and how I respond to the world. And that I can take that and bring that awareness of how I experience things to in a focused way to energy work and engaging with other people, there's a lot of power there. And so I just started to really see it as a superpower rather than a limitation that was, just annoying and annoying to me and annoying to other people. And I actually, was noticing how folks would say things like, wow, I just like when I it's so good to be around you. Like your energy feels really grounding, or hey, like you're just really you have an awareness. And I was like, those things are connected. Those things are not separate things that I'm just like I'm handling the hypersensitivity and I'm also a witch. They're deeply in conversation with each other. And the way that my body and nervous system, and I would add energetic field, receive stuff allows me to get information that I think I wouldn't be able to get if I didn't have this particular neurological, physical, energetic makeup.
Mhm.
So I think energy work goes into everything that I do. I perform rituals for folks. I really invite people to do the rituals alongside me, which I love when that happens. I'll do home cleansings, I'll do grief rituals, I'll do rituals for really any like major transition time or a intentional energetic shift. And I
Mhm.
like to bring a mix of like really tangible, like, we're sprinkling salt or we're burning rosemary or we're writing something on a paper and burning it. Tangible stuff is really helpful for me as a practitioner and just like a witch doing my own stuff. But then there's also just like meeting a person, feeling into who they are, feeling into the emotions of where they're at, and doing that in the course of like 2 hours and making sure that I can do it quickly enough to help them in that finite time. And so having that set of senses, it's really fun. It's really rewarding. And I think it's been so exciting to notice how it is empowering. It allows me to do things and connect with people and be a teacher and guide and support person in ways that I am lucky to have access to.
Yeah, I love that. And have you noticed, is there a certain theme of the kind of person that comes to work with you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think often I meet folks who a very loving thing that a friend of mine I have this like jar of affirmations on my desk that three friends of mine wrote. They each wrote a bunch of affirmations about me and put them together as a gift. And I
Oh.
pulled one last week. It's the best. I pulled one last week that was like there were a couple in there that I'm thinking of from the same friend. And I think they were you make people feel comfortable, something like that. And then the other one was like, you teach people in your everyday life just by being. And
Mm.
those are two really important things that I value about myself. And so I think when folks come to me, often they've been to other people or they haven't been able to find someone that they feel comfortable with. And when we talk about stuff, it can feel like there's respect and there's presence. I'm a pretty slow mover, so I attract people who enjoy like gentleness and slowness and that kind of warmth.
Yeah.
And I mean, demographically, I end up working a lot with women under 50 who are into the woo themselves or just starting to explore it and want some support. And I end up working with people I love the folks I work with. They are bringing a really deep level of intention to their lives, and they're also very curious about getting to know the world better in a way that they haven't before. And so I consider my work to be, whether it's guiding rituals or teaching or coaching, whatever it is, I am offering up some stuff that this person probably hasn't encountered before that they can add to their tool belt of ways to connect with the world around us and deepen their own experience of things. So I'm trying to think if there's any last stuff that I want to add to that. Um, yeah, I think there's a pretty strong no. I don't know if you have cursing on your podcast, so
It's
I'll
fine.
keep
It's
it.
fine. It's totally fun.
Okay, I think there's a pretty high like no bullshit meter that I put out into the world and with the folks
Mhm.
who come to work with me where and what I mean by that is not like, well, some people are full of shit and some people aren't. We are the ones who aren't. It's more like we've grown weary with a certain kind of rhetoric, and that rhetoric like didn't make sense to us, and so now we're coming to a different kind of rhetoric that feels more direct and honest, and is open to conflict and engaging with conflict as a portal, and just allowing that to be part of things from the start. And really, it is really important to me, and I use this in my work, I use it in my pricing, to be able to say, okay, what do you need? What do I need? How do we negotiate for both of those? And this is like a very polyamorous concept too of, what are you looking for in a relationship? Great. What am I looking for? Can we meet each other's needs, or are we better off just, as friends or acquaintances? And I have brought a lot of that into my work, and it means that sometimes I'll be like, we're going to do a pretty deep level of engagement around what we both need and see if those needs meet. And so like signing people on to work with me is not it's certainly not a grueling process. I think it's really fun and sweet and allows us to build the trust that's necessary for the work that we do. But it is an intentional process. It's not super quick. Usually means we'll have like one or two pretty present and open conversations before diving in. So folks who aren't interested in that, we part ways pretty quickly. And I tend to engage people who are like, yeah, I'm happy to stick around for that deeper level of one-to-one figuring out.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that. I love that women come to you as a guide, because we're not meant to do it on our own. We're not meant to figure things out on our own. And this is the way. It's just beautiful. I love working like this myself. So thank you so much for bringing this to the table today. Is there anything else you would like the listeners to know about hypersensitivity and the witch?
I just have one more thing that came to mind, which is I also consider I'm queer. I would say bisexual in like the broadest definition of that term. I'm attracted to all kinds of people. And I also identify as genderqueer, which changes shape and meaning a lot for me. But I really came to that like, this is an identity I see for myself, or I feel for myself. Because where I live and the way that womanhood is regarded or demonstrated like just doesn't encompass all the things that I want to be. And it's important to me to also like hold on to womanhood in my own definition of it. But I just started playing around. I think playing with gender is a really fun thing to do. And I started doing that during quarantine when there was like no one to see me. And I could just kind of be like, wow, I'm hanging out with trees a lot. And trees seem pretty gender fluid or genderless, or, let's just get into these weird ideas. So I think about queerness a lot, and I think my work is really queer in that it's approaching things always from a both and perspective, and looking to expand everything beyond a rigid, like a rigid shape. And I think hypersensitivity, or just being a very sensitive person, is also connected to that. I think there's sort of like the witch stuff, the sensitivity, and the queerness are like this trifecta that blends together to create just a certain viewpoint on the world that impacts all of my work. So I do work with queer people. I love working with queer people. It's definitely not a requirement, but it is part of that combination of ways that I experience the world. And I think that sensitivity plays into that both andness of like understanding the nuance of how something can be multiple things at once, or an experience can leave us with several seemingly mutually exclusive feelings that are actually right there side by side, and holding a sensitive awareness of all of those is something I take a lot of joy in and love to work with people around.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Just wise words and energy from a wise soul. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been so sweet to be with you.
Yes, you too. And I know that there's so much more, like we could go into so many different directions and layers with this. So for the listeners that would just love to learn more from you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I would love to email with anyone about anything we've talked about. My email address is Isabel, Isabel, at yourvillagewitch.com. My website is yourvillagewitch.com, YOUR. And I'm on Instagram and lots of other places as at Isabel O'Hara Walsh. And that's ISABELOHARAWALSH. And I hope to meet folks out in the world.
Yes, definitely. And I'll pop those links in the episode details too, just so it's nice and easy
Thank
for
you.
our audience to find you. Thank you so much again, darling. And thank you to our beautiful listeners. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a review and following us for more episodes in the future. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye.